What loophole did you exploit mercilessly? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the Vancher channel. Also, please share your thoughts on this video in the comments. Let's get started. Story 1. Pizza Hut partnered with a coupon book company. The coupon read, "Buy any one pizza and get a second pizza of equal or greater value, free." So for about 2 years, I would order a medium cheese pizza and get a large supreme for free. Answer. Pizza Hut used to have a 5-night Tuesday where you could get hot slices off pans of pizza they keep wheeling out of the oven. Pop was still per cup, but it was refillable too, so we would just crash the place in large groups, spend the whole night eating pizza and drinking fountain pop while being obnoxious teens. This evolved into contests to see who could devour the most slices without puking, and suddenly we were utterly disgusted by the thought of Pizza Hut. Story 2. My high school had compulsory sport for both summer and winter. You had to play. For a staunch, non-competitive like myself, this was pure hell. There was a reasonably diverse selection, but the real arsake with it was trying to choose a sport that didn't take up any weekend time. Winter sport was easy. Myself and a few friends picked badminton because training was on a Tuesday afternoon and the games were on a Thursday afternoon, leaving weekends free and clear for as much Nintendo 64 as little high school me could want. On top of that, none of us cared about the game. So during games against other schools, we'd throw every game. I say throw, but we were actually pretty terrible. And when we were scoring, flip over bonus points for the opposing team to ensure zero chance of victory for us. So there was zero chance of us having to participate in the finals, thus ending the season early. Our poor coach. Summer sports were a different kettle of fish. In previous years, we did golf. Our coach was particularly inattentive, and we'd wander around the course eating chips, drinking Coke, maybe hitting a ball here and there, and sometimes just bailing and ducking over to the carrot over the fence to look at games. But then a new coach took over. No longer could we just cat jerk through it. We had to be part of a golf club outside of school. Otherwise, we couldn't join the team. My buddies all elected to do rugby, having developed some modicum of team spirit. I, on the other hand, had not. I chose orienteering, as in previous years I'd done it with a friend, and we just walked the whole way once out of sight, or got his mom to pick us up partway through the course and just bail. This time, however, the orienteering head mandated that all participants had to go to the finals. Everyone, on a Sunday, in a town 3 hours away. That was unacceptable to shapeless old me, and my parents too, honestly. So I put in an application to change sports. I had no idea what I was going to do, but in order to switch sports, you had to get the official sport change form, have it signed by the head of the sport you were leaving and the head of the sport you were hoping to transfer into, and the high emperor of sports for the entire school. A colossal prick of a man who once kept our whole grade standing outside until 2 a.m. on grade 7 camp because somebody had squirted toothpaste into the campground toilet and wouldn't own up. A truly shocking crime. Anyway, I figured I'd try to weasel my way into golf again, despite not being part of a club. I went to the orienteering head and got her signature, and then as I'm leaving, she says, "Okay, you're no longer my responsibility." Ding. And just like that, I had slipped into limbo. I was in the realm betwixt sports. In the school's eyes, I was still enrolled in orienteering, but in the orienteering head's eyes, I had switched to golf. No more sport. Afternoons and weekends were mine again. And during times when we all went to our sports meetings after lunch, I'd head on into the toilets and hide in one of the cubicles and play my Game Boy. Nobody ever cottoned on. And the best part, I did the same thing the following year. Story 3. If I finished my classwork early, I could do whatever I wanted until class was over. One day, I just left school to get a pizza from a Pizza Hut nearby. However, I asked to use the bathroom and faked feeling sick for an extra amount of time with no questions asked. No one would be sent after me. Best day ever. The teacher didn't look happy, but I said, I wanted to lie about being sick so I could order a pizza. The only thing I really did wrong was leave campus, but I was a senior, so no one really cared. I ended up going to the office, gave him a slice, and we called it even. When I went back to class, all I could say was, "Don't say do whatever you want if you don't want us to." She just laughed and said, "You got me there. Here's all of next week's work. Have it done and on my desk by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning or you're suspended." Worth it. Story 4. My mom would ground me from video games by saying stuff like, "No PlayStation." So she'd later see me playing the DS, and when confronted, I'd say, "No, you specifically said no." Story 5. In Diablo 3, there was a rare material that was selling quite well on the real money auction house the game had at launch. During the first week of launch, I bought up all the low-level rare armor and weapons, etc., then deconstructed them, then sold the material for profit. Story 6. 1 GBP equals about 20 SLL, Swaziland currency, but the one coin is exactly the same shape and weight of the Swazi L1 coin. Vending machines in the UK would therefore accept L1 coins as one. Let's just say I had many cheap snacks and train tube tickets. Answer: Navy vet here. I ran the vending machines on the civilian ship I was stationed on. Side hustle, volunteer basis, but you get to keep a percentage of net. When we passed Japan, the 100 yen coin, 1 USD, would register in my machines as a quarter, and sodas were normally 0.5 euro. I accidentally let slip a rumor that the machine accepted 100 yen coins, and soon enough, everybody on the ship, 250 people, used my vending machine to get rid of all their leftover yen coins. The ship's purser would change money, so I gave him about 2,000 USD in yen, deposited about 500 to cover what should have been in the machine, and bought myself a new computer. Story 7. Thought of another one. A few years ago, the U.S. Mint offered free shipping on dollar coins at face value to individuals, in the hopes of getting them into distribution. Unfortunately, a bunch of unethical assholes such as myself maxed out all of our rewards cards by ordering thousands of dollars worth of coins. We then drove to our banks, deposited the coins we had just received, paid off the charges, and then ordered more coins. Rinse and repeat until they eliminate the promo. I and many others racked up literally hundreds of thousands of miles points while the program was live. Edit clarified it was the fact that we're spending thousands of dollars on rewards cards that granted the points. It had nothing to do with the bank. Answer: unethical? For ripping off a bank for 100. When I turned 18, I opened a checking and savings account at Chase Bank. Suck my jerk, you shoot sippers. When I opened it, they asked if I wanted to set up an auto transfer to my savings. Every month, they'd take 50 and transfer into my savings from my checking, and at the end of the year, I'd have a nice pot of savings. These jerk eaters knew that at 18, making nearly minimum wage, it wouldn't be long before the transfer would go through without the funds to transfer. The shoot-soaked tampon gobblers charge you for overdraft on automatic transfers between your own fudge accounts. I hope you choke on some peanuts or corn when you're chugging a turd milkshake. Chase Bank executive who came up with that plan. Story 8. Need for Speed, high stakes on PlayStation 1. You could race for pink slips. So me and my friend would copy a save file and transfer it to another memory card and race for cars and just sell the car we won. Save with new account balance, recopy file, and rinse and repeat until we had enough money to buy the McLaren LOL. Story 9. I don't know if it's a loophole, but when I was in high school in the late 90s, we had to sell these discount cards as a fundraiser for the football team. Whoever sold the most cards got sideline passes to a Dallas Cowboys game. The cards were 10 and had mostly shoot deals like buy a Whopper and 2 sodas, get another Whopper for free. But one of the deals was for 10 off a 50 purchase at a shoe store about an hour away called Just for Feet. Seems simple to me. I took a Saturday and drove to the shoe store to hang out and offer cards to anyone buying shoes. It was a no-brainer. I probably sold 200 cards that day just by hanging around the registers. Did the same thing the next Saturday and got a cool trip to Texas Stadium to see the Cowboys and Redskins. Maybe not a loophole, but I sure felt like it was too easy. Story 10. On my first year of college, we used to go to a nightclub that included 2 consumptions with the ticket. So you paid the ticket, and they gave you 2 receipts that you could exchange at the bar for whatever drink you wanted. Well, the receipt were printed with the very same machine model and with the same paper that the library in our college printed the receipt for return books with. Every Friday, we took a lot of books and returned them using the automated system at the library that would give us a receipt for us to prove that the book was returned. Later that night, we give those receipts to the busy bartender that could not be bothered to check those were real. This went on for months. Story 11. I remember thinking I was the smartest person in the world for using the Bing rewards to get Burger King gift cards that I could exchange for League of Legends, RP cards. Story 12. Our school's pop machine was one of those with the conveyor belt. If you blocked the little plastic door that led to the bin where you grabbed it, it wouldn't register and grab another pop, so you'd get 2 for 1. Story 13. Buy an IKEA item and email several different stores that you are missing certain parts until you receive all the parts for an additional item. Story 14. Undertale dog salad food duplication. My friend was playing Undertale and we found the feature you can use dog residue to fill your inventory with dog salad and more dog residue. Infinite food. It made us laugh. Story 15. A Walmart near my place accidentally marked a specific flavor of beef jerky as $1. I bought 70 bags over a week until they fixed it. Story 16. Kinda counts. My childhood surname was always at the end of the alphabetical roll call list. So when we were on excursions and the teacher started the final roll call To excuse the class early, I'd ask, please can you start from the bottom this time? I'm always excused last, first out the door every time. Story 17. One time the ATM had like extra crisp 20s or something and was accidentally giving out 60 instead of 40. So I withdrew over and over again until it stopped working. Story 18. Being able to trade items between games and Pokemon. I'd trade a lucky egg between myself to cut down on the amount of grinding I'd have to do. Story 19. I discovered a couple back between 2008 and 2010. When I was in college, I worked at B-Dubs as a cashier. They had kids' meal and chicken tenders, which was 3 tenders and a fry for whatever price. I'm sorry, I can't remember the price. It was pretty cheap. Then they had adult tender meal, which was 6 tenders and a fry. Fries were always portioned the same for any meal. I learned that if you ordered 2 kids' meals, you got 6 tenders and 2 fries for cheaper than the adult meal with 1 fry. I would do this and then use my 50 discount. They never caught on to that one. I learned of a second there playing in the POS computer. There was a glitch that if you ordered just a plain burger patty and fries and added the cheese, it would put the price at like 2. It only worked when adding the cheese to a plain patty. While ordering a cheeseburger meal was like 8. So I obviously did this a lot and then used my discount on the 2, getting full meals for 1. I got away with it for like 6-7 months before they caught on and fixed that glitch. Story 20. Back when I was a kid, Pokemon cards were everywhere. It was like pulling out Doritos in class. Because if you heat Pokemon cards, everyone wanted to be your friend. So I started to buy some booster packs and then resell them for twice their value. After that, I would proceed to buy out all the other students' cards, effectively creating a monopoly on Pokemon cards. Story 21. I am not an artist. We had to do these sketchbooks in middle school and were told we would never receive 0 points for work done. I would place random dots on a page, connect them, and make some odd animal out of the result. I would receive 0.1, 0.5 points. We needed to get to 10 points. So typically a student would do 1 to 3 works of art to maximize points. The thing was, I could produce one of my dot animals in 30 seconds. So I would produce just dozens and dozens of them to get my grade. Story 22. Way back when prepaid cell phone service was a big thing, my cell company, Rogers, had monthly prepaid cards, tier 10, 20. With these cards, calls cost 0.33 a minute back then, so my 10 gave me 30 minutes per month, which was good enough for me at the time. But if you were a big spender and bought 30 cards each month, the cost per minute dropped down to 0.1. Fudge, that made me angry. Rich people getting more for their money once again. So unfair. Now here's where the exploit comes in. One day I noticed in the fine print that they also had 100 cards that you could buy, but these were yearly cards. Broke jerk me could now spend 100 per year for cell phone service instead of 120. Fudge, yeah, but wait, that's still not the real exploit. The exploit was that when you registered your prepaid card online, you automatically fell into the big spender category because the website didn't know about yearly cards. So now with this scheme, I was spending about 8.33 a month for 70 minutes of calls instead of 10 for 30 minutes. I exploited this for years until they canceled analog cell service in Canada. Fudge Rogers. Story 23. Vending machines at work stopped taking money and started giving out things for free over the holidays. A few years back, I notified the bosses it was broken. Waited a week, it wasn't fixed, so I let everyone know at work how you could get free snacks from the machines. Those fuckers were empty within 24 hours. Story 24. Hungry Jack's Shaker app. I want a full stunner meal and just screenshot it. Never was questioned once on it. Story 25. There's a mediocre streaming service by the name of Fubo that costs something absurd like 75 most when you include the sports package. The thing is, if you don't have cable, it's very difficult to find a single streaming service that includes all NFL games. Fubo allows you to create a 7-day trial like most services, but what they don't do is require that you put in a new CC mail when making a new trial. So every week during football season, I'll make a Fubo trial, watch it for 7 days, then cancel. The next week, I'll fire up a new trial using the Gmail One trick and the same CC as before and repeat the process. Story 26. Free pizza. At Casey's General Store, before the app ruined everything, you were once able to save 10 coupons ripped from their pizza boxes and get a free pizza with them. So, buy 10 pizzas and the 11th was free. I would save 9 coupons, then rip the 10th from the fresh pizza I had just received. This way, the free pizza was every 10th. The workers either didn't notice or didn't care. Story 27. Most fast food receipts have an offer on the bottom to take a survey online and get a free sandwich, ice cream, entree, etc. On completion of the survey, they give you a code to write on the receipt to now use as a coupon. I never take the survey. I always just write a combination of numbers and letters on the receipt, and the restaurant always takes it, and they never question it. Story 28. My school had several types of meal categories, the two important ones being a daily meal swipe you could use at this one place on certain items, and also meal dollars, which you could use in place of money to get some of the other stuff. If you got, say, a burger fries drink, you could use the swipe. But if you got like a steak and cheese with a side of fries and a drink, then you'd have to pay for it all with the meal dollars. So the exploit was if you wanted something not covered by the daily meal swipe, you got whatever it was you wanted as a standalone, and then also got the burger fry drink combo covered by the swipe to get your fries and drink for free. Story 29. Couple years ago, when McDonald's just started selling their artisanal offerings, I found out if you ordered using the touchscreen, you could get one of the artisanal chicken sandwiches for free. So what I do? By phone. I had one of those, the $1 any size drink, and 10 chicken nuggets nearly every day for 2.5 months. It took them around 4 or 5 months to fix that, lol. Story 30. When I was in high school, my friends and I discovered a horribly unhealthy extreme coupon buy. The store was running a promotion of 0.99 energy drinks. The same energy drink was simultaneously running a promotion of buy 10 energy drinks, get 10 in-store credit. We cleared out 3 stores over a summer break and spent $30. We did this so we could have 3 checkout lanes constantly scanning all of their inventory. When the managers caught on to what we were doing, they would go through the same stages. First, they'd make sure we weren't doing anything illegal, make sure they weren't doing anything they could get fired for. Then they'd help us offload their entire stock. The next day, we went to try it at a few other stores, but word got out of Discovery and the store shut the promotion down. I drank so much AMP that summer. I remember staying up for 2 days running on nothing but AMP and Doritos. We were out in the desert building jumps for our bikes in the Phoenix AZ heat. I threw up, went home, and slept for like 16 hours and gave away the last of my energy drink loot. To this day, the thought of drinking an AMP makes me feel uneasy. Story 31. A chain pizza place had a promotion where you could get a free 5 gift card for buying a 25 gift card. I regularly bought pizza there, so I started buying the gift cards and using them. Story 32. I went to a science high school and signed a contract that required me to enroll in a science engineering-related course. They have a list of courses you can enroll in so that I can experience the benefits. First of all, it was quality education as it's one of the top high schools in the country. There was also no tuition fee, but the cherry on top was that we had a monthly stipend. Not adhering to the contract meant a student would pay the equivalent of about $5,000 for tuition and return however much of the stipend they've accumulated. It's pretty heavy for a family that had to rely on a scholarship for their child's high school education. The loophole is that the contract stated that we were to enroll in a science course and didn't mention anything about sticking to it or getting a degree from that program. Many of us end up shifting to a different course after as little as 1 semester. I've shifted courses twice and am now in a degree program that is not on the list. Answer: LMFAO. This reminds me of how I got my CS and CE degrees. I had all the requirements to transfer to a very nice private university with a full scholarship, as long as I initially transfer for the mechanical engineering program, as that is what I had the requirements for. I'd get full tuition plus living expenses for the time I was there. Nothing about my scholarship stated that I had to stay in the mechanical engineering program, just that I had to transfer into it. First day on campus, I asked if I could change my major from mechanical engineering to computer science and computer engineering, and they did it. Scholarship never changed, and I got 2 much more valuable degrees. Story 33. All of the clubs in my high school did fundraisers by selling candy to students for 1 each. Me and a group of 3 or 4 friends all put some money together to buy a 30-pack of bulk candy at Costco or something for about $14 and started selling, saying it was for XYZ club that didn't exist. We sold like crazy because we made sure we had a much larger variety than the other clubs. Made about $50 a person each week for a year and a half before anyone caught on. Not bad for almost zero effort. Story 34. Back in the day, the government mandated all students of a certain year in my school to spend a few hours per week for an entire school year on some sort of paper. A paper detailing the sector you would like to work in after you finished your academic career. A teacher was set to be dedicated into guiding every student with this paper. They explained the details of what this paper must entail, its format, how to write it, all that good stuff. After the introduction classes were over, I recall figuring out that a previous document that I had to create earlier after a short internship kind of had the same format as this paper we're supposed to spend an entire year on. So I matched the criteria necessary for a good grade. But I missed the most important rule of them all in the fine print: self-plagiarism. Plagiarism was prohibited. This was to prevent people copying each other's stuff, which makes perfect sense, of course, but there was no rule in place to prevent me from copying my own stuff. A big distinction as far as I knew. So I made some adjustments to the document I already created earlier about the internship and resubmitted it again for review as being the new paper. All in all, it cost me 3 to 5 hours to make all the adjustments. Needless to say, I had to explain myself to the head teacher of the school and the teacher dedicated for this assignment why I was done so early. And I did in all honesty. Their faces were priceless. The head teacher had to call in a government official, probably a member of the committee that set up this assignment, and review the official rules to confirm that I had broken the rule about plagiarism. But I already knew I didn't break any rules. Not only did we get the instructions in class, but we also got a copy of the qualification fine print, which I went over meticulously before submitting the document. Therefore, I thought to be 100% sure that self-plagiarism was not defined. 2 days or so later, the head teacher had me summoned again. He explained that he had a call with someone in the Board of Education, sounded really stern about it, even explained why plagiarism is bad, etc. But I was correct. I exploited a loophole, so had to get the benefit of the doubt. The board at the time didn't qualify self-plagiarism to be the same as actual plagiarism, and is in most works still a bit of a gray area if I'm not mistaken. My internship document had a good grade, and my adjustments didn't affect it negatively, so my paper also got a good grade. And as the cherry on top, got the hours that were scheduled in the weekly roster to work on the paper as time off. I didn't hear about any other students abandoning their work and using this loophole instead, as I did tell my friends why I was done early as well. Maybe they were already too deep in. I didn't submit it right after I was done, but still, why early? So there might have been a sunk cost fallacy at play. After that school year, the government ended up patching this little loophole as expected though. But this is a story I will never forget. It's that one stroke of genius I had in my life that was actually worthwhile. Saved myself a lot of time and got a good grade nevertheless. And then they all clapped. No, of course not. Probably burned 1 or 2 bridges with jealous classmates more likely. Story 35. There used to be a quinoa bowl lunch spot in San Francisco where if you spent more than 8, they would email you a coupon for 8 off your next bowl. If you then bought a bowl that was slightly over 8, so let's say the bowl is 8.25, and then you apply the 8 coupon, so you pay 25 cents, they would email you another coupon for 8 off your next bowl. I worked across the street from this place and got really sick of eating quinoa every day, but I just couldn't beat the value. Story 36. Taking classes from the local community college while I was in high school. They were incredibly easy, boosted my high school GPA from a 3.0 to a 3.7, and got me a year's worth of college credit. Story 37. In my elementary school, we did the PACER test, and we had a very specific rule. If you fail to complete a lap twice in a row, then you are out, which meant that you can walk out to the next lap, fail it once and run back to catch your breath. I didn't harmful behavior it too much, but just know that a 200-pound 4th grader got 50 laps on the PACER test. Story 38. Little Caesars used to have a memory game. 4 colored buttons that make a different sound, plays a sequence that you have to repeat, and each time it increases by 1, that I was a savant at. Top prize was a free pizza, and I'd almost always win. Spent a lot of time at my family's business that was a few doors down, and one of the employees would send me down with a quarter whenever they wanted pizza. I didn't really eat it. It is bad. After getting 25-cent pizza for months, it suddenly became 1 pizza per week on the machine, then 1 a month. Eventually, the top prize became garlic sticks or something, but I found a machine years later at a different location and did it again for old times. Story 39. Remembered Coca-Cola used to have free movie or game rentals with prize printed on inside of the label. When I worked in a shop stocking the Coke, I used to check all the labels and always bought a few bottles of Coke during my shift to ensure I was set up for movies. Now people just pirate them. Story 40. In my sophomore year of high school, I failed my math class. During summer school, I found out that the entire class was on a laptop that we still had to show up to the school to do. Kind of dumb, but whatever, it got me out of the house. But here's a loophole I did. There was no limit to the amount of instances of the program you can have opened, and also there is no limit to the amount of times you can fail a quiz, But after 2 tries, you can wait 10 minutes and try again. So what I did was I would get 10, 15 instances of the test. Open them all at once so the program thinks they're all my first attempt. Pick all A and boom. Out of 15 questions, 4 are A, same tab. Take the test again because you get 2 free tries. Then you get the timer. Okay, all B this time, 2 Bs. Next tab, all C, 6 E. C's now. I know how many of each there are. Trial and error time, baby. You think I'm gonna do some bullshit jerk algebra? Nah, man, probability. I remember there was one test I had like 60 attempts on because it was like 45 questions. So the teacher in charge called me over because they can see our progress and they asked if I needed help. And I just said, nope, I'm not doing it the way they want me to. I'm doing it like this. And I walked to my desk, opened my notepad app on the computer, and showed her the notes of the trials and errors of the test she asked if I needed help with. And she just smiled and said, well, it's still math, I guess, and walked away. It took me a week to do a semester's worth of math, and I got to leave summer school early. My junior year of high school, I gave up in my math class because it got really bullshit, and I just thought, man, I can get this done in a week during the summer. I still get the credits. I still pass my math requirements. I'm gonna just check out of this. And just didn't do the homework. When there was a test, I'd write my name on the paper and hand it in. I ended that semester with a 13 on my grade, and I finished the math class in summer school in 4 days. Summer school was the best part of school because I got to cheat my way through it, not lie about it, and get praise from the teacher in charge for exploiting the fudge out of the system. I even got a couple of my friends out of doing the work. Story 41. You can fully close and reopen Spotify every time it plays an ad and start your next song with no ad. I mercilessly exploit this pretty much every day. Story 42. Amazon gave me a 10 off coupon for ebooks. Problem 1, the coupon was unlimited, so I could use as many times as I liked. Problem 2, there was no minimum price, so I could use the coupon on ebooks that were less than 10. I got so many books for free, I still haven't read all of them. Story 43. When I was younger, I had Family Link on my device. For those of you who don't know, Family Link is a standard family monitoring app, and one of the things it could do is lock down my phone during bedtime hours. If I unlocked my phone during this time, a screen would pop up that says time for bed, and I couldn't get past said screen until morning. However, young me quickly discovered that the phone needed to be connected to the internet, and I found that if I turned off my Wi-Fi and data, my phone would not lock. Even though I couldn't access the internet, I could still play the games already downloaded to my phone, so young me was a happy camper. Story 44. Reading official rules in sweepstakes. One year I dressed all of my kids in a lot of free jeans from American Eagle and free everything else from Aeropostale. Story 45. When I was younger, I didn't have money to pay for internet because at the time it was a pay-per-usage for services like AOL and CompuServe. So I found out that on the promo discs for Prodigy, internet was a file you could open as a text doc, and it'd have dial-up numbers and demo usernames and passwords that were used in the sign-up process. I never paid for internet. Story 46. Back in my high school days, I realized the bus drivers unconsciously allow you on the bus when they see a ticket without reading the expiration date if you quickly show it and proceed to walk on board. I had an old expired weekly bus pass that I used to use to get buses for free. It had about a 99 success rate, and if you got caught, you could just say it was accidental. Story 47. There's a glitch in Cyberpunk where you buy all the 10 sodas you can find, dismantle them into parts, then sell the parts, and you get so much money out of it. Combine that with a couple perks that give you extra parts for dismantling stuff and profit big time. Thousands of eddies in just 10 minutes. I think the machines are supposed to be limited to 3 per machine, but at least on PC, if you click on the button fast enough, you can get 10-20 cans from each machine before they stop. Then you either wait a day or fast travel or something, and they all reset. I played through the game twice before figuring this out, so now my third playthrough is just about exploiting glitches in the game, and it's so much fun. Story 48. My local restaurant had a special offer of pizza, chips, and soda, available for both delivery and pickup, except that in both cases it was cheaper to order each separately. Story 49. My buddies and I used to save on movie tickets by buying 2 for all of us and splitting the costs. 2 of us would go in, 1 would go out, pretending to go with both ticket stubs and bring in another buddy. That buddy would then take both stubs and bring in another buddy, and we'd repeat this until we were all in. Probably wouldn't work now since I think most theaters have a no readmittance policy. Answer: I would use the same ticket for months at a time. I just fold the stub at the perforated edge and flash it to the attendant, thinking I had already been in and went out for a smoke. I just needed to time it right when the lines were noticeable busy and the attendant was preoccupied. The next time I'd go, I'd exchange the ticket, saying I never watched the movie. Don't know how it worked every time, but it did. This was back when AMC theaters were a thing. Not sure if they're still around. Story 50. When I was in high school, everyone in my hometown were battling each other with Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. I found out that in Blue, if you use your name as LAD, you can get level 128 Mewtwo's. With the rare candy trick, I had a team of 6 level 250 Mewtwo's. I destroyed everyone in town. Story 51. Points rewards cards. 1. Get card 2. Find a vendor who will sell you fee-free Visa or MC gift cards. Use card to purchase. 3. Use gift cards to buy money orders. Must be low fee. 4. Use money orders to pay off credit card. 5. Collect points. Story 52. I am doing Invisalign and also pregnant, and my orthodontist and OB are located in the same building. The orthodontist has prime location reserved parking in the garage below the building, while the OB does not. It'd have to park a floor or two down and hunt for a spot. Every appointment I have with my OB, and I have a lot, I use the reserved parking for my orthodontist. It feels wrong because I'm not using it for an orthodontist appointment, but I justify it that I am technically a patient of the orthodontist, and I'm also super pregnant and honestly just really need convenient parking. Story 53. Not really a loophole, but for 5 years I drove for a parts company, took parts from the distribution center to our stores. I.e., we end up driving 300, 400 miles a day. Well, I ended up racking up over 2.3 million reward points from one gas station and 600K from another gas company. All free points as I was using the company fleet card. Story 54. Free late-night movies. I'd walk in and act like I had a ticket, and no one would ever check me because it was like 10 p.m. at night with 2 workers on concession. Answer: in my town, people would just walk out of screen 1 after the movie and into screen 2 to watch another. Nobody around to check, and later night movies were usually pretty empty unless it happened to be a huge new release. If it was halfway through, people just assumed you were coming from the bathroom. Note, I never did this, too afraid of being caught. Story 55. Several friends of mine moved into a newly built large apartment complex in a college town. The local franchise pizza place thought it would be an opportunity to get future business to give a voucher for a free large pizza to each unit, 500 or so. The vouchers were placed on a non-numbered black and white paper copy. Some people with a basic copy and scanner decided it meant infinite pizzas. When the pizza place caught on, they started making note of each unit that placed an order, which resulted in shifty friends making future orders with a free voucher for another unit in the complex. Story 56. I don't know if this counts as a loophole, but when I was in high school, my buddy worked at Subway. This was when they had the rewards card that you filled out with stamps, and after 8 subs, you got a free one. I guess the employees were supposed to trash them when they were redeemed, but he just put them all in a box. One day he gave me a box full of them, and I ate free subs until they discontinued the rewards card years later. Answer: my friend did this, but with the McDonald's cup cards where you collect 7 stickers and redeem the card for a free cup of coffee. We worked together, but I quit before he did to get a job in recreation instead of fast food. I would still swing by to order food every so often, and he would put the cards aside, and whenever I drove up to pay, he'd hand me the whole stack hidden under the debit machine so I could get free hot coffee over winter. Story 57. Not me, but a customer of the store I worked at. Every week, I would get a smoothie maker return. Every week, same model. After a few weeks of the service desk giving them to me, I asked, why do you give me one of these every week? They said they didn't know. We had a no questions asked return exchange policy as long as you had your receipt. I found out it was the same person returning it every week. Then as I dug further, it was the same customer who owned a burrito shop in the same plaza we were in. I saw him in the store one day and I asked him, hey, if the smoothie maker breaks after a week, why do you keep getting the same one? To which he replied, it makes the consistency of the beef perfect. Story 58. The coin-operated laundry in our dorm had vertical coin slots, and if you placed the quarters in the fingers of a latex glove and then placed them in the slots, you could hold the opening of the glove, push the handle in, and then withdraw it with quarters still in the slot. The machine would start, and then simply repeat the process for every load you needed. Answer: one time at my old apartment complex, they did maintenance on the washers and dryers. They accidentally left out the instructions on how to access the settings mode on the machines. 3 minutes of fudge about with it, and I learned how to do the test cycle feature, which allowed me to add however much time on whatever machine I wanted. I did my laundry free for like 2 years until I moved to a different complex. Story 59. I once got a card to put in my car window to allow me to park at an event. The wording on the card was vague and just pretty much said I was allowed to park there. I used it while I was in college to park in the closer teacher spots. Story 60. One of my students' job had a grossly overpriced Kinder Bueno vending machine in the break room. One day I accidentally realized it opened like a normal fridge. I've eaten approximately a gazillion Kinder Bueno in the course of 2 weeks without telling anyone, but my best coworkers. Story 61. At Burger King, a double cheeseburger meal cost more than a 2 cheeseburger meal for years. Pitch the 2 bottom buns and boom, double cheeseburger. Story 62. In the board game King of Tokyo, you play as a giant monster rampaging through Japan with the goal of earning a certain number of victory points or reducing all of your opponents to 0 health. Throughout the game, you accrue energy tokens that let you buy power-ups. One of the power-ups lets you force another player to sell you their power-ups once per turn, and another one lets you sell your power-ups once per turn. With both of these in your arsenal and a little startup capital, you can start a chain of stealing everyone else's powers, using your ill-gotten gains to do it again next turn, and there is virtually nothing they can do about it. I have never lost this game with those 2 power-ups, but I have lost friends for doing it. Story 63. School was full of them for me. I had some learning difficulties growing up, so I wasn't the most well-learned kid, but I was clever. So the school had that typing test, so we all day down to take it, and we had to write like 20 words per minute. I was doing 13 because my ability to spell was crap. So I got into the computer settings and changed my counter to count letters per minute instead of words. That way I could see how good I am. So I do the test and get my score and then do the maths in it on some scrap. And I was averaging around 22 to 23 words a minute, which is a passing grade. The teacher congratulated me later that day on getting the score and then told me she knew how I did it, but isn't going to fail me because technically I followed the rules. Story 64. As a kid, when payphones were everywhere, I would jam the coin slot with grass and come back the next day with a paperclip to retrieve the quarters from the coin return. Not much of a loophole, but it didn't say anywhere on the machine that it wouldn't accept grass. Story 65. In high school, we were not allowed to smoke in school. Neither were we allowed to leave school territory. I read the rule book and found that they considered the sidewalk right in front of the building to be part of the school. Combining these, I was able to enjoy a smoke every noon break by leaving the school building, but not the territory. They allowed it on the condition that I did not share this loophole with the other smokers. Story 66. We didn't have much money when I was a kid, but my mom ended up getting a timeshare at a local resort. It had a huge, amazing pool with a waterfall, hot tub, underwater speakers playing jazz, basically a kid's dream of a pool. My mom would take me, my siblings, and my friends to swim there all summer long. We even had birthday parties there. Never actually stayed in the resort, though. My mom would just say, "I have a timeshare," if anyone ever stopped her. And I guess nobody ever checked if she was actually staying in the hotel, LOL. Story 67. GameStop's 7-day return policy. If you bought a used game and returned it within 7 days, you'd get a full refund. It does not take more than 7 days to beat a game. Story 68. I'm currently in the middle of fabricating one. Every time I leave my house in the evening, my parents will always ask where I'm going. Sometimes I tell them, but sometimes I'll say something like, "I'm going to smoke crack with some friends." And then I just walk out while they laugh it off. Been doing it for years, so they're desensitized to it at this point. My hope is that one day, if for some reason they catch me smoking plant substance with a friend, I can say, "I've literally been telling you what I do with my friends for years and you never cared." And of course, they'll realize I was right. Story 69. Might be too late to the party, but the thread reminded me of this legend who realized someone had screwed up on an airline miles promotional deal and turned like 3K into several million airline miles. Story 70. I'm addicted to this one game on my iPad, but it has a timer and only lets you play like 2 or 3 games every hour unless you buy coins or whatever. Whenever I run out of time, I set the time on my iPad to the next day, open the game, set the time back to today, and boom, I get 2 or 3 more games. Story 71. Pizza Hut. If you fill out their dumb surveys, they give you a 10 off your next purchase coupon. but you had to spend at least 20, and you could not be using any other coupons with your purchase. Now, anybody who gets a lot of Pizza Hut knows that there's no point in buying anything unless you use a coupon, because the normal menu prices are inflated. So the 10 off coupon is effectively useless, since it typically yields no better results than the persistent coupons yield anyway. However, for a couple of years, Tuesdays were called Tuscany Tuesdays, and you could get pasta breadsticks for $5, normally priced $6 at that time, and tag on an extra pan for another $5. And, important part, this did not count as using a coupon. So you could, in effect, use your 10 survey coupon on Tuesdays to get 4 pans of pasta and 10 breadsticks for only 10 total. Similarly, Wing Wednesdays allowed you to get boneless wings for 0.5 each, instead of the normal price, which was something like 0.60 each at that time. And it didn't count as a coupon. Therefore, with the 10 off coupon, I could get 40 wings for only 10 on Wednesdays. Pizza Hut has since eliminated these loopholes, but it worked for a few years, and it was nice while it lasted. Story 72. When you were able to submit a picture of your Domino's pizza on the Domino's app, and they'd award you 10 points each time. I forgot the exact amount, but once you had enough points, you'd be eligible for a free pizza. I would just take random pizza photos on Google and ITD work. Learned this from Reddit myself. Story 73. In 2000, when smoking was still a big thing, we would get promotional cartons that had BOGO packs in them. The free pack didn't have a barcode and wasn't counted for inventory, so I would just pop out all the free packs and pass free cartons of smokes to all my friends. Story 74. A while ago, some cell phones had the submerged indicator on the battery. I accidentally submerged my phone. I dried it out, replaced the battery, then brought my phone to be replaced because it wouldn't turn on. Story 75. Many years ago, I'm talking 2003 or 2004, when you paid for mobile data by the KB, the UK network O2 had a sort of backdoor to getting free data. All you had to do was go into your phone settings and change the port to 8080, and bingo, you didn't pay a single penny for accessing the internet. It took them literal years to pick up on this exploit and stop it. Those were the days. Story 76. When I worked at Target, I'd buy 2-3 games at a time. Some of them I'd play for a few hours before deciding I didn't really care for it. Since the products were open, I couldn't return them to Target. I learned that Walmart would exchange the game for you, no questions asked, without taking the wrapping off the new game. So I'd take my open games to Walmart, exchange them for unopened games, then take the unopened game back to Target and return it for the full price. Story 77. My high school charged 0.110 a page for black and white printing and 1 per page for color printing. When you logged onto the computer at startup, it would then say applying system settings or something like that. On your desktop was your print account balance, where you could add funds to print whatever you needed to. After some trial and error and a bit of poking around, I found out that each computer had a list of profiles saved to its internal hard drive, allowing you to sign into a computer with the network cable unplugged. It also turned out that doing this gave you administrator level access. Admins printed for a 0.00 fee for black and white or color. I'll leave it at that. Story 78. In Australia years ago, they changed cigarette packets all to plain packaging. Well, me and a friend went around to all the supermarkets with fluoro-colored work shirts and steel cap boots. We said we were there to collect all the old packets of cigarettes that were not yet in plain packaging. We would wait for a young worker and hand them a black garbage bag to collect the cigarettes, and by the end of the day, we could barely fit in the car. It was full top to bottom of smokes. Story 79. I lived by a movie theater, so I went a lot. The large popcorn was like $11 but had free refills. I was a broke middle schooler, so I would go into the movie, grab a large popcorn bag out of the trash, and rip the bag down the side. I would then take said large, ripped popcorn bag to get a refill and ask for a new bag. Thus, a free large popcorn in a new bag for free. Story 80. All throughout high school, there was a Mexican chain restaurant that gave free horchatas on Tuesdays. My friends and I would get in a van and ask for 6 horchatas, no ice, every week. Sometimes there would be a new person who would feel guilty and order a tortilla. Story 81. The car wash station near my house. If you put in a quarter, it thinks it's a loonie, Canada, and I can wash my car for 50 instead of 2. I have been using this method over 4 years. Answer: this was back when colored bills were being put in circulation. My sister used a new colored 10 for quarters at a laundromat. The machine read it as a 20 because for a while only 20s were colored. So I guess it detected color on the bill and gave her 20 worth of quarters instead of 10. This wasn't fixed the entire time she lived near that laundromat. Story 82. If you take the survey on the back of the Popeyes receipt, you get a free 2-piece and biscuit with the purchase of a drink. And you can take the survey on the back of that receipt to get a free 2-piece and biscuit with the purchase of a drink. And you can take the survey on the back of that receipt to get a free 2-piece and biscuit with the purchase of a drink. And you can take the survey on the back of that receipt to get a free 2-piece and biscuit with the purchase of a drink. And you can take the survey on the back of that receipt. Answer: there is a Shakey's Pizza Parlor by my house that had something similar. If you ate at the all-you-can-eat buffet, you get a receipt with 40 off the next buffet. The next time you came in, you would use the receipt and they gave you an identical one. Essentially, you pay retail price once and 40 off from then on as long as you had a receipt. Still worked up until COVID. Story 83. I piled up the buy one regular sub, get one free coupons from a newly opened Jersey Mike's. They haven't made money on me for 3 months. Story 84. The YouTube Music app doesn't let you listen to music while your phone is off. I found a loophole. Some apps have lock screen mode. While on an app, look at the bottom right of your phone's navigation bar. If there is an emblem right of the 3 lines, that app has the lock screen mode. What this does is it essentially turns your phone off, but it isn't completely off. This keeps the battery usage at a minimum with the screen on, but not bright enough to see anything. This prevents your phone from turning off. Since my phone isn't technically off, the music still plays. I love that. Story 85. A grocery store by me has a policy that if you found shoot that was expired, you could bring it to them and get a non-expired version for free. I was really poor and did this a lot. They really disliked me for it and started adding rules like, oh, you have to spend the amount that the items are worth. Maybe take the fudge expired shoot off your shelf. Story 86. Harmful behavior, so many loopholes when I was in school. Once the school tried to make clear backpacks mandatory for safety or whatever, so my friends and I would fill our bags with unmentionables. My friend filled his bag to the brim with tampons. I filled mine with condoms. And my other friend just put everything in not clear pencil pouches. Needless to say, the clear bags didn't last long. Internet school blockers were a game to me. At first, it was easy enough that just adding unblocked to the URL worked. Then it became you had to have a teacher log in, which was still easy, just ask the teacher's kid. Then it was an actual block wall, but just switching browsers worked. Finally, they disabled downloading things unless you were an admin, it had a login, which made downloading a different browser difficult. Too bad the same teacher login I used a year prior still worked. School disabled their internet for everyone's phones. Apparently, they never heard of data. We were given lanyards with student ID cards. In the rulebook of that year, all it said was, students have to wear the lanyard at all times. They didn't say how you had to wear them. Answer: when I was 15, my school let us final year students have free, unblocked access to the internet because we trust you as almost adults not to harmful behavior this and to be sensible. I don't know if anybody ever checked what we were looking at, but back then there were a couple of sites like rotten.com, now gone, and other gross shock sites. Really inappropriate thing to do. Story 87. If you work in education and have a .edu email address, you can almost always get student pricing on services that offer it. Amazon, Spotify, or Story 88. Oh man, I've been waiting for this one. Okay, so summer of 2008, brand new water park in Florida opens up called Aquatica. My cousin and I started going there every single day from 9 a.m. until about 6 p.m., sometimes until the park closed. Now, the park had small lockers for 5 and large lockers for 10, but you got 5 back if you gave back the key for the large locker before you left for the day. The park also had 3 restaurants that you could go to, and the option of buying this little wristband thing that you could use to eat as much food as you wanted without having to pay again. They also had their own version of a lazy river, except it wasn't lazy. They had these crazy powerful jets under the water that kept it moving so fast that even grown adults had difficulty standing still in the middle of the river. And although the locker keys came with a wristband, people often opted to put them in their pockets rather than their wrists. So the jets of water would push the keys out of the guest pocket. My cousin and I would go swimming in the river, locate the bands because they were fluorescent orange, return the keys for 5 a pop, fish out random quarters that would also get lost in the river, and use that money to buy the wristbands to eat. Since my dad gave us money each day specifically for those wristbands, we were making money hand over fist. Oftentimes, we would find more quarters than the money we get back for the keys themselves. I don't know how we didn't get caught. We went back to return these keys multiple times a day. Sure, we'd switch off, and so that my cousin would hand one in, then me, then him, etc., and we'd try to wait until a new group of cashiers had been swapped in. But you gotta figure that eventually they would have had enough complaints of people opening up their lockers and finding someone else's stuff in it to raise their suspicion. And since we were doing this every day, it should have been a simple matter for them to look at who had been there every single day. We had an all-year pass that you have to scan to get in, and they've got day passes so that everyone who comes in each day is tracked, and then just narrow it down from there. Whatever the case was with that, by the next year they stopped giving back money for the keys. The following year they had keyless lockers that you had to input a custom code for in order to use and deactivate for the day. They also got rid of the all-you-can-eat wristband. Oh well. Story 89. Sitting in 400 NBA seats for about a 20 basic lowest cost ticket. If nobody checks the lower level for ticket holders, find an empty seat down in lower level and have a blast. I sat courtside 9 rows up from the floor and basket side several times, all for about 22. Story 90. When I was a senior in high school, way back in 2008, I had an open slot in my schedule for the first semester. I enrolled in a class we called cadet teaching. In this class, you could request to be placed with any teacher in our district to help out for 1 period per day. I requested to be placed with my old grade 3 teacher for the first half of the semester, and with the junior high band director the second half. You basically help the teacher grade papers, monitor students while test taking, and help out in any way you could. Read free teaching assistant. In a perfect world, this class is geared for students considering going into education in college. However, most people at my school treated it as an easy blow-off class. On day 1 orientation with the coordinating teacher, he walked everyone through the syllabus and requirements for the class. He explained to us that the 80 or R grade would be derived from our participation. This meant showing up each day, being productive, and being beneficial to the teacher you were paired with, and not a waste of their time. The remaining 20 of our grade came from completing paperwork. Not a monumental task, just doing weekly logs of what you did during the week. I thought about this for a total of about 4 seconds and raised my hand to ask a question. Me, so the paperwork portion of the grade is really only 20 of our total. Teacher, yes, that's right. Me. So you're telling me that if I do exactly none of the paperwork or logs and show up every day, the absolute worst grade I can get in this class is a bum or 80? Teacher, gears turning in his head. Me, raises eyebrows. Teacher, yes, that's correct. Promptly dies inside Q, a grin on my face and a few chuckles from other students. I had a great semester helping out my 2 favorite teachers that I had had up to that point. They had nothing but good things to say about my work and helping them. The coordinating teacher asked me a few times in the beginning of, I was going to turn in my logs, and I would simply say nope and continue on with my day. The grading scale was changed the next year to a 50-50 split, I think. 12 years ago, I think I hit my peak, but it was worth it. Story 91. Among Us, if you set your device's time to April 1st, upon attempting to start a game on the Skeld, you'll actually start a game on Dlex 8, which is just the mirror image of the Skeld, used to annoy and confuse the shit out of anyone who joins my game. Story 92. There was an NPC store in Lineage 2 that would sell basic crafting materials. If you purchased $99999 at one time, the price would overflow back to like 2 gold. Then sell the $99999 items back to him. Rinse and repeat. Answer. In Star Control 2, before they patched it, which since it shipped on floppies only affected the second print run, you could sell a planet lander even if you had no planet landers. Infinite free money. Actually, I never harmful behavior this. I never even noticed when playing, though if I had noticed it, I wouldn't have anyway. The game was more fun with limited resources, but it is a notorious exploit many players used. Story 93. Chuck E. Cheese fishing game glitched and basically gave out unlimited tickets as long as you kept playing. My wife and I took turns and my daughter walked out with one of those big prizes that day. Story 94. My local Domino's has a 50 off coupon code that they give out when someone's order is screwed up. They never change the code. I've gotten a lot of half-off pizza. Our local McDonald's franchisee is a cheap jerk and often doesn't participate in promos. When they were rolling out the mobile ordering app, there was a 2-for-2 deal they weren't participating in. At one store, they forgot to hide or turn off those menu items, but since they weren't participating, they also didn't set prices, so those items were free. You just had to add 1 paid item since you couldn't check out with a 0 total. I got a lot of lunches for me and my coworkers for 1 a day. Story 95. More of a glitch, I suppose, but when Redbox first started their app was much less robust than now. My wife discovered if you added a movie to your cart, then hit checkout, then back, it would keep the movie in your cart but changed the price to zero. We rented probably 30 movies for free, a few each week, until they finally updated the app. Story 96. Some shops give a student discount if you have a student card. Just your name and picture on a card from the university, no dates or anything. Graduated 2 years ago, kept the card. Story 97. Have a round table pizza nearby. You can get nearly any combination of toppings on a pizza for the max price of a standard combo pizza. Say you want a BBQ chicken pizza, but you want artichoke hearts on it, but don't want to pay the $3 or whatever extra. Order it online. Do a half and half pizza. Select one half as the BBQ chicken pizza, then extend the toppings to the whole pizza. Option for each topping online. Then find a combo pizza that has the extra toppings you want. Remove the toppings you don't, then make the ones you do for the whole pizza. You get a BBQ chicken pizza for normal price with any added toppings you want. Story 98. Pizza Hut Buffet Survey Loophole, X200B. In grad school, the entire group went to Pizza Hut on Fridays during their lunch buffet. Like all you can eat for next to nothing, maybe $10 or so. They had a survey on their 1 out of 7 receipts that if you took it, you would get free buffet next week, only had to pay for the soda. The person that would get one would give the full value of the buffet cost to the waitress as a tip. Eventually, the waitresses caught on and would save the survey receipts for the entire group of like 14 of us on Fridays. So we would get free buffet every week, but would give the cost of buffet to the waitress on duty. So they would get like $150 in tips for the day. You aren't going to get rich on grad student pay, and what did we care who got the money? We did this for about 7 months or so. Eventually, corporate caught on because on Friday, the profit for that store would go way down, and sometimes corporate would come out and observe. So on those days, we didn't get the survey receipts. Eventually, that Pizza Hut closed, and that was sad, but it was good while it lasted. It got to the point where we didn't even have to go up to the buffet table to get pizza. They would just bring pizzas to our table and stock the buffet separately. We even gave tips to the cooks in the back. They loved us for a while. Story 99. At Domino's here in Australia, you used to be able to order a supreme pizza for like $5, remove 3 toppings, and replace them with any other toppings they had whatsoever. So you could pretty much turn a $12 pizza into a $5 pizza. It was brilliant. I saved so much money over like a year and a half, until one day their shoddy web team figured it out and fixed it. Now you pay for any topping you add, even if you remove one. Story 100. At my college, there is this food app that offers deals and coupons on nearby restaurants. There was this promotion on the app that allowed you to get a free entree from a select few local restaurants if you invited a friend to the app, and the friend would also get the freebie. Basically, I sent the app to all of my close friends and family and got a whole bunch of free entree coupons redeemed on my app. But wait, that's not all. Since I go to college away from my home state, I was able to invite a lot of high school friends to the app, then log into their accounts on the app to also redeem their free entree coupons. The only downside was that I had to pick up food under a million different names at the same few restaurants, and I'm sure the local Thai restaurant owners were sus of my rotating identities, LOL. I was eating like a king for a solid few weeks. I miss being on campus and learning in person sometimes. Edited for typos. Story 101. Back when Windows XP was the shoot, I would get my friends their own product keys by calling Microsoft and telling them the key I had wouldn't work during the install. They would always give me a new key. Probably got about 5,000 worth of product keys for a lot of people in my class. Story 102. Mom and Dad rarely spoke and pretty much lived in separate areas of the house. When I was going into town to see a movie or something, I would hit each of them up for some money separately. Always ended up having way more than I needed, and I don't think they ever found out until now. Story 103. When CVS first came to town, they sent out mailers with several in-store coupons for off anything from a certain category. 3 off hair care, 5 off vitamins, etc. Figured out quickly that if you bought something that was for less than the coupon amount, the excess would apply to anything else in the store, and you could use all of the coupons in a single transaction. And did I mention it? I lived in a large apartment complex, and lots of my neighbors just threw the coupons in the recycle bin by the mailboxes, and CVS sent another round of coupons about a month later. I ended up with so much free lotion, shampoo, TP, etc. I didn't have to buy that stuff for years. Story 104. There was a soda machine by my house when I was a kid where I somehow found out if you selected Mountain Dew and hit the side of the machine, 3 would come out. Worked for years. Story 105. Long story short, when extreme couponing first became a thing, I found a loophole on a cereal that was on sale and found this coupon and went to like 6 different locations of this chain grocery store and bought in total 120 boxes of cereal and didn't pay a cent. I actually made 5 cents per box. I found a similar loophole when Coke Zero first came out and got 62-liter bottles for free. I don't drink soda, so I donated them. Was still fun to do. Story 106. I'd scan into the college cafeteria for lunch, make 4 sandwiches, and bring them to class to share. Story 107. A company that sells solar panels had a game on their website. You had 30 seconds to click a button. Every click was, let's say, $1 discount. The maximum was $330 or something. Yes, I used an auto clicker. Story 108. Back in the 80s, Radio Shack would take returns on video game cartridges for the color computer. The manager bragged they couldn't be copied. With a piece of tape over a pin of the cartridge, I would dump the data at a starting address for the cartridge to a cassette tape. Once done, I could remove the cartridge and plug in my 5.25 floppy drive and copy the tape to disk. I repeated the process until I had all the games. Story 109. In those mobile games where you'd get super coins for liking their Facebook back in like 2014, and you just enter and exit not liking, and you get the super coins. Story 110. Also, as a kid, I discovered that you can successfully call someone on a coin-operated payphone, at least the ones here in Australia, without putting any money in. The call goes through, then hangs up automatically 3 seconds after they answer on the other end. It made prank calls very easy. Story 111. Local pizza place gave me a coupon for a free up to 3 topping large pizza if I also ordered a 5.99 order of garlic knots. For the last year or so, I've called once or twice a month and placed paid for the order over the phone. I then go in and pick up the pizza. They have yet to actually ask me for the coupon, so I just keep using it, and the code keeps working. I did ask the employee if they wanted the coupon early on, but the person at the counter said, "Nah, fudge this place," and laughed. I thanked them, left, and never asked again. Story 112. Our 7-Eleven free coffee card. Picked up a Star Punch at Office Max and got a free coffee every day for half a summer. Then asked if we could get sodas instead, and they said yes. When Hulu was only ad-supported back in the day, you could change the stream resolution to skip ads. Edit. Story 113. When I was back in high school, my orientation was arts. So in my entire class, there were tons of people that were good at drawing. We went partying, and in Germany, they stamp your hand at some locations to show you've already paid entrance fee and that you're the appropriate age to get all the hard adult beverage. 2 older classmates got their stamps, and they came back out after 5 minutes. On the parking lot, we copied the stamps. We had brought a palette of different colored pencils for this, as the stamps changed daily. We all got in. Answer: reminds me of a college back when drinking age was 19 for beer. They had 4 student union-sponsored parties on campus in the spring for 4 Saturdays. We went to a supply store, all pitched in a few bucks, and bought rolls of tickets, the exact same tickets that they were selling for beer. Not only did we drink for free, we sold them for like 10 for $1, just to make our initial investment back. That's it for this video. Don't forget to support Vancher and my second channel, Vanchoose. See you soon.